So I just pulled the last 7 days from the MLS from the Austin metro area. And right now in the last 7 days, we had 481 properties that came on the market or back on. And we had 248 go under contract and then 253 go pending. So out of the homes that came on the market, there were 76 price increases, and that's 16%, and only 11% that actually decreased their price. So obviously from that, we're not seeing any slowdown in price appreciation as of yet. So here's where you can brace yourself, because in the past 7 days when we had the 481 new active listings come on the market, we saw those 1,011 properties that came off the market. And those were the homes that were either sold or gone pending or withdrawn. And that's a huge difference between what is coming on and what is going off. So, after our crazy busy January, we will again feel the big dip in our inventory as it was already so low. So here's what I'd love to hear from you. How are you feeling about our market right now? Jump into the comments and let me know. A, are you thinking it's about time to get out of Austin? Or B, have you just arrived and maybe you're excited about our booming town? Or maybe C, if I close my eyes, maybe this will all just go away. So I'd love to hear from you, whether good, bad, ugly. So anyways, let's get back to the inventory. Currently, the Austin proper inventory is just a touch over 2 weeks supply, which is half of what it was last year this time. And there's actually pockets or neighborhoods that are much lower. So with so few homes to buy, of course, we're seeing home prices continuing to rise. In the city of Austin, the median price rose 20.9% year over year. In Travis County, rose 23.8%. And in Williamson County, the median price climbed 42.2% year over year. And one thing to point out here is the increase in Williamson County being double the amount of Austin. So if you're buying or investing or thinking you might like to see some appreciation, here's your sign. So here's some more interesting information from a recent Austin survey. Eric Bramland is a broker here in Austin. He's one of my favorite sources of our local market happenings. He surveys local agents and gathers comments from all of our different experiences out in the field. And as you can see here, 41% of agents expect 5 to 10 competing offers on properties that are $500 to $1 million range, and a little over 41% expect to sell at 5 to 10% over. So with that being said, I've got to reassure you, this really has so much to do with the area. We're currently selling at an average of 4% over list as of when I took all of February closings in the Austin metro. And we see some of the desirable neighborhoods can be going for more like 20% over, where some sellers in some places don't stage their home properly, or they leave very obvious repairs undone, and it can go for list price or even under. This is where you just simply need an agent that's knowledgeable about the area and can help pull the data you need in order to write that winning contract, or price your home according to the true market value in your specific neighborhood. So as I give you the market data, obviously it's kind of hard for me to give you the stats without giving my opinion about what they mean. But just in case you might want to know, sellers, you could be wondering, with the prices rising, maybe you should wait to sell. Well, check this out. Buyer demand this year with the top red line as it dipped into February, but it's jumped back up. It might just be time to get in while it's hot and while inventory is lower than it has ever been since 1982. By the way, sellers, with the market changing so quickly, if you haven't run comps on your home lately, be sure to get that done ASAP. Of course, I'd love to help and give you a free analysis at least, so that way you can be thinking ahead of your plan. You can watch the movement of the market and the effect it's having on your neighborhood. In a nutshell, as a seller, you really want to have the greatest demand possible for your home. And I'll touch on why the demand is not going to continue at this level in a few minutes when I talk about the 3 interest rate increases, with the federal meetings. And yes, obviously it's no big news to hear, right now most homeowners believe that it's a good time to sell their homes. In fact, a recent seller survey said they indicated they feel it's better to sell today than they did even before the health crisis. And, I guess when I put myself in your shoes, and it's not really even an issue of if you should sell, if you're wanting to make a move. But the issue is more, where do you go? To hear more about this, watch my video, Answers to Top Seller Concerns in Austin, and I'll link it below. Now, to you buyers, I know things seem a bit unsure. And yes, I know prices have risen and are still continuing to rise. However, we know that the prices will not drop while businesses continue to flood here and we continue to have such low inventory. So the message here is to consider making the concessions maybe that you need to go ahead and get into a home instead of waiting another 6 months and kicking yourself when prices are another $75,000 higher, like a couple of my investors have. Many buyers have very specific desires, and maybe if you would just think, contemplate, could you live without something? And, look at your new home maybe as a stepping stone and not a forever decision. Or, consider the investment aspect. And yes, you might find yourself down the road 2 years later needing to sell, but now with $75,000 net cash, like my listing that's going live this week. Life has changes, but obviously, we know what makes that easier is the knowledge that you made a great investment along the way. And on a positive note, if you're a first-time home buyer, or maybe you're a parent of an adult child, I know it can feel discouraging at times, but here's some good news. Just this past month in February, out of all the closed listings that I pulled in Greater Austin, 45% of those were sold between the prices of $250,000 and $500,000. So this data shows that even though Austin is appreciating fast, and although the average home buyer may have to drive out a little bit further or lessen their must-haves slightly, they still have almost a 50% chance to find their new home. And by the way, on a new construction note, I see buyers when they realize how low the current home inventory is, and nothing's tripping their fancy. And obviously the next best decision is new construction, right? So on that note, a recent home builder survey results from February had 3 main themes, and number 1 was record high new home price increases at 20+%. And 2, record low builder finished inventory. Wow, I could go on and on about that. Number 3, the demand is still off the charts with buyer prospects lists going on forever. I could seriously go on and on about each of these, but I know so many buyers are frustrated beyond belief at delay after delay and price increases. And, some of them still have no close date in sight, or maybe they're signing off when they didn't even get appliances in, or they're holding for certain things. But, for the sake of time, I'll keep new build gripes to a minimum. But one thing I noticed, Scott Turner, the president of the Home Builders Association of Greater Austin, he was speaking to the price issue, and he said, Austin's economic growth is showing no signs of stopping, with all the announcements of new projects happening daily. This is great for Austin, but our capacity to house people can't keep up. So people are having to drive further and further outside city limits to find a home they can afford. And also from my experience, something that buyers may forget to think about when they're regarding new construction is the unknown tax amount. The tax increases on development goes on, and it can be quite steep, but for starters, let's just say that you contracted a house at $600,000, and throughout the year you get a few increases, and you end up at $675,000. Then instead of, owing tax as the estimated cost for the lot or the beginning, let's just say you now have a 3.19 tax rate, which equals $20,735 in an annual tax bill. You add that on to a monthly mortgage and voila, are you prepared to pay that extra $1,728 per month of tax on top of the base, mortgage cost of your $675,000? Just a note. Earlier I had mentioned interest rates and what's going to be happening here. So the interest rates as of March 4th, our conventional 30-year fixed rate is at 3.78. Our VA 30-year loan is at 3.4, and the FHA 30-year coming in at 3.38. So thankfully, we haven't seen the rates go too crazy yet. And this could be partially due to what's happening in Ukraine. But all of the experts do predict the rates increasing, we know. We know that there's also 3 Federal Reserve policies that are changing at these coming meetings, and they're March 16th, so right around the corner, May 4th, and June 15th. And this is said to have 100% chance of increases at each of these. So now, while this is definitely something to be aware of when you're looking at what price you're comfortable with buying, I don't think it's the end of the world because I can remember high interest rates back when, for myself, I didn't think much of it, How about you? What's the highest interest rate you can remember? Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure my first home, I had like 10% interest, and we didn't think it was so horrible. We just qualified for what we could qualify for. I think we've been really spoiled by these crazy low rates the last several years. And obviously, now if you have the opportunity to buy while the rates are still down right now, by all means, of course. But I believe buyers will still come when rates are higher. Plus, remember, it's not even going to affect the sellers that are reinvesting after they sold or come into the table with cash. So to recap, obviously we see that home prices have continued to climb, and it's time to move fast if you're a buyer, really. Sellers, as you heard about the rate increases, that it's going to slow the buyer demand, and especially if your home is in the $450 to $550 range, because it's the first home buyer price range and they're trying to qualify. But if you're fortunate enough to have a home that's closer to 600 to the million mark, I personally don't really believe that you'll be impacted nearly as much because the buyers at that level, they're not as worried about the rate. However, you'll be seeing lessened buyer demand as the new home inventory comes on the market. So now for my investor clients, with recent rent prices increasing and they're reaching a 15-year high, and values are projected to grow by more than 13% over the next year, and single family homes ranking #1 in your investments, your opportunity is now too. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you stay in the know and up to date on Austin real estate. And if there's any way I can help with your specific needs, make sure you reach out. Again, my name is Susanna Gentry, and this is Tuesday's Tips from your Austin, Texas Realtor. See you next week.